I'm joined now by Matthew Brodsky. He's a Middle East expert and geopolitical analyst. He is also a senior fellow at the Security Studies Group, a think tank here in Washington, focusing on national security issues. Neck and neck, both claiming victory. Where do we go from here? What is your read on what has happened so far?
I think we'll wait till most of the votes are counted. It seems that a few of the polls are showing that Netanyahu is behind Benny Gantz, the blue and white party, which of course would be the challenger to Netanyahu, who's been there for such a long time. What it comes down to first is it's up to the president, not the prime minister, to decide who can put together a coalition government to get to 120 seats. That's the entire Knesset, so you need 60 to have a coalition. So whoever can put together the coalition the easiest or the most stable will be given that task. What that means is that it's kind of like Netanyahu is playing with a bit of a, he's allowed to have less seats as he had before in 2009 and still have an easier time putting together a coalition. So if he, at the end, is within, say, 5 seats of Benny Gantz, then I think he will end up with a victory. But for now, who knows, some of the outstanding votes, and like in the United States, some of the outstanding votes are a lot in the military, but over there, everyone's in the military. It's compulsory service. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are to the right or to the left, to use the way we look at politics. So we'll see.
And what do you think of the exit polls? A lot is being said of sort of some conflicting information coming out from them. Do you trust him? Do you not? What is your take on that?
Okay, I trust no polls. Before everyone got President Trump's numbers completely incorrect was the 2015 polls in Israel. And they had Netanyahu losing by a landslide to what was then the Zionist Union. And it turned out to be completely wrong. So I don't know if it's specific to Israel and the United States, apparently, or if this is just how things are in the world generally. But I really don't count, I don't count my chickens till they hatch.
But this still appears to be a pretty competitive race. What are voters saying here?
I think, look, there's no doubt that this is a referendum on Netanyahu and his prime ministership, but not in a way that it's, say, in the United States, it would be a choice between a Republican or a Democrat, and so vastly different policies. If you're looking for a very different type of foreign policy, even if the blue and white party and Benny Gantz were to be in office, it's not that much different. They are the military commanders who had worked for Netanyahu, and they are center-right. The left has just been decimated as a result of the Palestinian Intifada and that violence from the early to mid-2000s. So, and they performed incredibly poorly this evening. So it's really not that much of a difference. The big difference I think you would see between the parties is how you would see the neighbors react. Everyone likes to test whoever's new. There are certain rules of the game that Israel operates with Hezbollah, with Iran, with Hamas in Gaza. So whoever comes next might think that they inherit those rules, but the people on the other side might say, well, we're going to test that. And that's happened in the past.
How much of what we've seen with Netanyahu outside of Israel, with what has happened with the United States and Donald Trump, and some of the things he's done recently, meeting with Putin, what kind of impact has that had, if any, on this election? I
think it has a major impact, and if he wins, hopefully he will say that. I mean, I'm sure he'll point to that. But there's no doubt that he does live. Israel is, as is said, in a tough neighborhood. Now the fact is, in Syria, he's had to deal with the president here, who's had differing policies and has been quite good for him on some aspects and less so on others. Still a far improvement over what was previously, from his perspective. Putin, he's had to work with as well, who's now, his stock has been on the rise throughout Syria. That's ground zero for Putin making much bigger inroads in the Middle East. And so he's had to manage a relationship that has been quite tricky at times, and that's a balancing act between two world powers.
So Matt, walk us through the next 24 hours. You're basically saying we just need to wait and see how everything shakes out.
Yeah, what we're seeing right now are speeches with two people saying that they're putting out a good face and claiming victory, and of course that's what they're going to say. There's a lot of horse trading that goes on right now behind. That is, they're talking, each of them are talking to smaller parties to see what kind of coalition, trying to get someone to commit to not going with them so that they can go to the president, who has 2 weeks to say, I've decided this one or that one can go make a a coalition government. But this could, in theory, go on for a month. That's how the rules are there. But just patience, and this happens all the time. You have to wait for all the votes to be counted, and then we'll see. But there'll be house trading.
And if you had to call it right now?
Yeah, I don't get in the prediction game. I mean, you know, it could end up for Netanyahu. That's where the smart money was beforehand. But as I've said before, the smart money has been wrong as frequently as it's right. So who knows?
Matthew Brodsky, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.